Well, audience, it's me, your boy. Today we're going to be reading Teen Titans Down and Dirty by Sparks XXX. That's a high-quality name if I ever heard one. Now, this fanfiction, I haven't actually read it yet. I don't read any of these ahead of time so far, at least. But from the skimming over it that I've done just from getting it ready to read, doesn't look like it's that bad, especially compared to the other things that I've read so far, which is interesting. There is one interesting thing to note about it, though, and that is in the author's notes here. I'm going to go ahead and put those on screen. They've indicated that they only wrote most of this. I'm going to first point out that they're absolutely horrible grammar here. I'm not sure if that actually improves during the story, but they've pointed out that they had another friend more experienced than them write the sex scene portion of this. And I'm going to go ahead and take that to mean that the rest of this is going to be bad. I'm also hoping that that's going to get us into an interesting bit of consideration during the review, especially when it comes to grammar, when author changes about halfway through and tone changes completely. And I'll point out when the change happens when we actually reach that section. So let's get started. It was January in Jump City, and unfortunately it was also cold and snowing. Isn't Jump City supposed to be like San Diego or Los Angeles or something? I'm gonna take a moment to check that, and we're gonna call the author out on the first page because I'm an asshole that way. Where is Jump City in the U.S.? Let's check here. Well, looks like, according to the Wikipedia associated with this, Jump City is in California. So we're gonna go back here. It was January in Jump City, and unfortunately it was also cold and snowing. If they mention something about this, I'll apologize for pointing it out. But as for right now, I'm calling myself correct. The few good things about winter, thought Raven as she walked down the halls of Titan's Tower, is that when the temperature drops, so does crime rate. She had taken up the hobby of walking through the tower whenever her eyes began to get sore from reading, and was one of the few deserted floors in the tower. She often came to the abandoned floors to think what proved more efficient than hiding out in her room, since everyone would look there first. She walked to a crate and leaned against it, deep in thought. So many things had started changing lately. Starfire had learned colorful Earth swear words, which she uses incorrectly. Cyborg had been hanging out in the kitchen a lot, preparing for warm winter meals, as he calls them. He says that since it's cold outside, they need better food to stay stronger. Raven just thought he got tired of constantly eating pizza and decided to learn how to cook. Robin had started watching all those forensic mystery shows like CSI and Monk. Raven had recently become sexually active, much to her pleasure, with the goth boy at the party she went to when Starfire was visiting. And Beast Boy had been acting more strange than the others. His change is the one that makes her worry most. Besides hitting a growth spurt and finally getting 3 inches taller than her, he had become somewhat antisocial. Well, as much as Beast Boy could be, that is. He'd become moody around people and only came out to eat, play video games with Sai, beat up bad guys, and stay around long enough so no one would question his behavior. That sounds pretty social to me, you know, sticking around with people when you could reasonably not do that. Beating up bad guys. I only beat up bad guys when I'm in a very good mood, actually. Unfortunately for him, someone did notice, and she's worried. She never thought of him to be the kind to isolate himself, but she had been wrong before. The Malchior fiasco says enough. But Raven thought something was wrong, and as much as she didn't want to, she had to confront him about it. She sighed and thought, well, time to try and play therapist, and she began walking to the elevator. When she reached the elevator, she lifted her hand to press the button, but didn't need to. The door swung open to reveal just the Titan she was looking for. Beast Boy, hi, there's something I wanted to talk to you about. He walked off the elevator and began to follow her back to the crates. Really? What about, Raven? He asked. She was nervous. She never confronted someone like this before. She just hoped she doesn't scare him away, or make him tease her about this later. Listen, there's, something I've noticed about you recently. You've noticed I've grown too, huh? Yeah, dude, it's awesome. Actually, not what I was talking about. And don't interrupt me, she annoyingly thought. She leaned against the crate again. Beast Boy followed in her actions, although he was closer to her than he normally would place himself near her. Why am I noticing so much lately? Okay, Beast Boy, you've been acting a little odd lately. And well, she seemed to have lost the words she was going to speak and became silent. The entire floor was silent, and you could barely hear the two breathe until, I wondered when someone would notice. It doesn't surprise me it was you. Oh, that was Beast Boy's line. I wondered when someone would notice. It doesn't surprise me it was you, he said while slouching somewhat. He seemed depressed when he said it, as if he dragged it out of himself. Cool, he said it so I don't have to. So what's up? She asked. He took a deep breath and sighed before answering. I'm pretty much in love with this one girl, but I don't think she even likes me. Her heart skipped a beat. She couldn't help but feel a little bit jealous of this girl. Sure, she had a crush on Beast Boy, but she didn't act upon her feelings, not for fear of the team, and was now envious of this girl she didn't know because of it. Also, this was an actual reason to be depressed about, not like last time when he lost his game. It's a tonal shift there, comic. I appreciate that we're getting a tonal shift in here. I'm also going to take a moment to point out, these characters don't act like, well, they don't act like human beings, but they also don't act like the characters from the source material. And that's what makes a fanfiction, like, bad. There's fanfictions that are bad because they're gross or disgusting or awful or just completely nonsensical. And then there's fanfictions that are bad because they're Mary Sue-ish, or the characters don't act like themselves, or even like real human beings. And it seems like that's the territory we've wandered into. So I'm going to take a moment to apologize to anyone expecting something interesting to happen here, because it looks like it's not going to happen so far. Well, have you talked to her about it? She asked. If she couldn't have him, then she would at least try to help him be happy. Not really, but I don't think she would go for me, he replies. Why not? She asked. Because she's beautiful, smart, kicks ass, just so many reasons. Plus, I don't think I could really talk to her, you know? She sighed. Damn. Well, how about this? Tell me certain things you might want to say to her. He thought for a moment and then energetically said, All right, thanks, Ray. He cleared his throat for dramatic effect, which earned him a small chuckle from Raven. Well, so-and-so, I've liked you for some time, and I'd like to do things together, he tried. That was kind of bad, even for Beast Boy. Okay, how about tell me all the things you want to do together? He nodded and thought about the words that he would use. I would like it if we went to the park sometime, or maybe swimming. Wow, he sucks. Well, that was good for your first try. He gave another sigh and shouted, Geez, this isn't working. Why isn't it working? Maybe, started Raven. Maybe you're trying too hard. They were quiet for at least 10 minutes till Beast Boy slid to the ground in defeat. It's not gonna work, Ray, but thanks for trying. I'll never be able to tell her. Just like I'll never be able to tell you, she thought sadly as she slid to sit down next to him. I just wanna, he said while running a hand through his hair. You just wanna what? Asked Raven. Truthfully, I just want to walk up to her and tell her I fell in love with her, and I don't even know when I fell. Just from the moment I met her, she put this spell on me, and kiss her that one kiss that you swear you felt the earth move and make love to her all night, he confessed. Well, I think you should do just that, BB. But not the make love part. I don't need that vision in my head, said Raven, standing up and walking to the elevator. Tell me how it goes, she said in a saddened voice. She felt like crying, and she was sure her voice could give that away if she were to talk again. Raven, wait! Beast Boy called to her, ran after her as she was about to press the elevator button. You know all that stuff I just said? She nodded her head. Yes, not trusting herself to look in his eyes. He gently rubbed her chin and made her look him in the eyes and said, I meant it, and passionately kissed her, and she kissed back. I'm not going to take a moment to interrupt the story and let you know that the next section is written by the guest author. And I don't mean that someone asked for pointers when writing something. From the looks of this, it looks like it was completely written by a different person. And it's probably better written than the rest of this. I'll give it that. It's probably better written. It's also going to be, suffice to say there's a reason that actual, books don't have this kind of thing in there. It felt like they lip-locked for hours when actually it was only minutes. Beast Boy slowly broke the kiss and they looked into each other's eyes until she went to kiss him. She kissed him hard, causing him to moan. He slipped his tongue into her mouth and began stroking her tongue with his own. Raven's hands went to his neck to deepen the kiss, which earned her a groan of appreciation. He slowly backed her up till she was against the elevator doors. She couldn't hear anything at that moment and only focused on the two of them. He started kissing her softly and lower until he was at her chest. He slowly took off her outfit and bra, then gently kissed her breast, singular. She had never had imagined what it would be like to actually be with Beast Boy, but she never thought it would be this good. He slid back up and started kissing her. He reached down and undid his pants, sliding her hand onto his dick. He groaned in pleasure as she began massaging his shaft. She was more turned on than she had ever been before. She knelt down and put his dick in her mouth. She was giving him head, and she could feel herself getting wetter and wetter. He stopped her. He couldn't take it anymore. He wanted her and wanted her now. He picked her up and slid his dick deep into her. She moaned from pleasure, as did he. He was going as fast as he could in rhythm to her moans and screams. Finally, he could no longer hold back, and he let out a moan. With that, he came. She stepped back from him with a smile on her face, and then leaned in for a long kiss. Beast Boy was leaning against Raven, who was pinned against the wall, both breathing heavily. Raven's eyes were closed in ecstasy, as was Beast Boy's. She smirked and breathlessly laughed somewhat. He was slightly confused as to why she was laughing after sex. "Well, I don't think you're gonna be depressed anymore after this," she said as she leaned in for another kiss. Okay, it is now review time. All of you just sat through that with me, and I sat through reading it, so I think I deserve to rag on this for a few moments. Let's start with the obvious bad part about this, and that is that they switched authors. They actually switched authors to write the sex scene. And it's not like they're like, oh, well, I looked for another author because I didn't know what I was doing and this other author could provide me with advice. No, it's pretty obvious that that was completely written by a different person. Not only is that section its own paragraph and it has no dialogue in it when compared to the whole rest of the thing, but it's actually written, I'm not going to say well, but definitely better than the rest of it. What else? A lot of awkward tone in here, a lot of that kind of thing. As far as grammar goes, let's get a grammar number for this. There's a lot of tone that's very awkward. There's a lot of misspellings, some weird punctuation stuff. Again, it's not that bad. It's certainly not as bad as Garfield, King of Liberty, but that's not really why this fanfiction was bad. So going based on the tone being the biggest grammar problem that I have with this, I'm going to go ahead and give the grammar for this one 6 out of 10. Then we get on to the actual quality scale. And you know what? Objectively speaking, it's not that awful. It's just boring. And that's the worst thing that you can really say about something when giving it a bad rating, is to call it boring. Okay, everybody said it, everybody knows it's true, but you can make something bad and people will remember it, but you make something boring and nobody cares. And the reason that this is boring is for the same reason why a lot of people write fanfiction. When you write fanfiction, you get to steal the personality and universes of the characters that somebody else spent time creating. Which means you don't need to know how to write, you just need to know how to put words onto the page. Your writing doesn't need to have to be able to world build or have exposition, because all of that was already done by someone else. You then reach a point, though, where the characters' personalities that have been set up by someone else and are understood no longer apply because you just decide you don't want to use them anymore. So you get characters that don't act like themselves. I mentioned this earlier. You get characters that don't even act like human beings act. And that's how you end up with truly bad fan fiction, like fucking Sally's Amazingly Messy Day or Remarkably Messy Day or whatever was bad. I actually threw up while recording that, but this was worse because this one was boring. With that, I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 1 out of 10 for quality, just so I can reserve that 0 for something I know is going to show up one day and be worse. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you following along with my channel through my 4th video. Please subscribe. I like worthless internet points. They make me feel like my parents don't hate me. Thanks.